What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel. Now today we're bringing you our monthly State of the Meta address. If you've never seen one of these before, this is basically a little bit of a breakdown on what is going on in competitive singles right now as far as the tier list, as far as what is doing really well right now, what's being used a lot, what is being used a little bit less nowadays, you know, just what the general trends are in general usage. So if you're excited to find out what is going on out in the world, make sure to leave a like down below and a comment telling me, what do you think? What do you think deserve to be higher? If you think something deserves to be lower, you think it's overhyped, anything you think. So just let me know down below, and of course, subscribe if you're new. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We're gonna look at the major tier changes going into April, and there are several. I don't think it's nearly as impactful as last month, but there are definitely some big changes that I want to talk about here. It's pretty interesting what's going on. So let's start with Hawlucha. Now, Hawlucha has been jumping back and forth between, it was in UU, and then it went to BL, then it came back to OU, and then now it's back in BL. It just can't seem to make up its mind. It's a very good mon, and honestly, I think it belongs in BL. I don't think it's good enough for OU, but it's just way too good in UU, so I think BL is where it should really stay. Yeah, but it's a really strong mon. I mean, having access to Unburden as well as it having the power that it does, and its moveset really helps it out, having the diversity of moves that it does. It's pretty nice. It's fast, it hits hard, great move pool, strong mon. So I think it deserves to be back up in OU, but I think its home is definitely UUBL. But you know, it is what it is. We'll see it drop back down later, I'm sure. Alright, so Mantine getting a rise here, which is pretty cool, going from RU to UU. I think this has a lot to do with Rain showing up a lot recently, and that is a lot to counter Sun that has been around a lot. So this thing is a great Rain Sweeper. We showed it off on the channel before in a Wi-Fi battle, and it absolutely wrecked. I'll put that up in the iCard above in case you missed that. But Mantine actually is surprisingly good. It's got very high special defense, and its offenses aren't super great, but with specs under Swift Swim, it can be kind of a problem. And it's got a pretty diverse move pool, but it can also be a bulky mon, whatever you need it to do. And yeah, it does well. So I definitely love seeing this thing rise. I don't think it's gonna stay up here, unfortunately, but I do love seeing it being able to move up like this. Alright, so NUBL loses 3 mons. It loses Scrafty, it loses Slurpuff, and it loses Vikavolt. Now, Scrafty is a really underrated mon, in my opinion. Scrafty is bulky, and it hits pretty hard. It gets Dragon Dance, it gets Bulk Up, it gets Drain Punch in order to heal itself. It has a lot of things at its disposal. Assault Vest is actually very good on Scrafty. He's a good mon. His typing does hold him back a little bit, and him being so slow, but I'm telling you, once this thing gets set up with like Dragon Dances or anything, you basically can't stop it. So you have to be careful with this thing. It's definitely a threat, and just being dark fighting, you know, we've got Urshifu coming up, same typing. Scrafty just shows you the potential of what it can be if Urshifu has better stats, and if Urshifu has better stats and same typing, you better believe that Urshifu's going to be a threat, because based on Scrafty. So yeah, good mon. It's really cool that he's moving up. Slurpuff got access to Belly Drum back, and that is why this thing is starting to run through in RU. It's pretty strong. I've used this also on a Wi-Fi battle during Week of Wi-Fi. If you missed that one, that'll be up in the iCard above as well. We featured a lot of these mons on the channel, and they're really cool. But this thing can be really strong if you're not careful because of Unburden. The ability to double its speed and maximize its attack, it's really strong. It's a really great mon. I'm really glad to see it finally getting some usage back rather than these weird special sets. It's odd. I mean, it does get webs, which is pretty cool, but it's not where this thing shines. This thing really does well as a belly drummer, so I'm really glad to see it coming back. Vikavolt, now that it gets webs, is really cool. It's just really slow, but it hits like a truck, so I can definitely see it rising up, especially with sticky web support that it can set itself. It can also have things on its team to support it as well, but being the typing that it is with electric and bug and having that ground type immunity is very nice for it. And of course, that really high special attack is awesome. It gets Volt Switch so that it can pivot out if you scare something out. Thunderbolt hits really hard. You can even run AV, full offensive, and this thing will take a hit. It's pretty insane. So very good mon. I love seeing it rising back up. And Rhydon actually getting upgraded from NU to RU. This thing is super bulky with an Eviolite, and it hits pretty hard too. Both of its stabs are very strong, and it's weak to water, obviously, and ground and grass. So it's got some big weaknesses there, but it's able to cover a lot of them just with its natural bulk, and anything else that it can't cover, you just help it on its team. But it's a very nice wall, does a lot of work for sure. Clefairy. Clefairy is a weird mon to see out of PU, but Clefairy actually is pretty crazy. Normally when you see Clefairy rising in usage, it's because of Friend Guard, and that helped it a lot in doubles. It made a big run in VGC for a while, just because Friend Guard helps to set up your opponent while you can follow me. You have all kinds of support stuff, but Clefairy can actually do some work. It's so bulky with an Eviolite that it actually has some staying power, and I'm excited to see what this thing can do in NU. I think it's pretty cool. It takes hits for days. It's nice. It gets some kind of recovery now. It gets Moonlight, and it gets Soft Boiled, which is pretty cool. So yeah, this thing is improving, and it's only gonna get better from here. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Ninjask, fastest boy in this game right now. Pretty cool mon. He's just super fast, and there's no way to check him as far as speed goes. His attack isn't great, and he is super flimsy, 4 times weak to rocks. He's got a lot of things that are working against him, but we have heavy duty boots now, and that is really nice in order to help it not take all that damage. But you do need to make sure that you get your kill at the very end, and then yeah, this thing's pretty nice. It outspeeds a lot of things, even Scarfed mons. And especially after speed boosts, yeah, this thing, you're not going to be able to touch this thing's speed. It's pretty insane. Sylvally Water is pretty cool because water is such an interesting typing. It's usually used as a straight bulky typing. And Sylvally being as versatile as it is, it can be bulky, it can be offensive, it can do whatever it wants, and it really helps to check things like Rhydon, which just left. So yeah, I definitely see why this thing is being used. Base 95 all around is okay. It's at that point where it's just under being good. If it was 5 points more, honestly, I feel like it would be a decent mon. I feel like it would definitely make it up to like RU, maybe even some of the types being UU, just with the versatility that it brings. But it being 95, it's just not great. Its speed tier is okay in this game, but as soon as we start adding more and more mons, you're going to start seeing more and more of those forms drop. It's unfortunate, but you know, he's all right. He's okay. NU is probably as high as he's going to go. And Wishy Washy. Wishy Washy is such a cool mon that I wish was better because I love his design. I love his concept. I love the idea of a school of fish all coming together to make this massive fish and then just wrecking everybody with it. But he's so slow, and as soon as you get him below 25%, he's useless. It's just basically like having a dead mon, and he doesn't have any kind of recovery unless you have some kind of wish support on your team, which I guess you have Clefairy to help him out. But yeah, unless he has some kind of support like that, then he's not going to be at his full potential, and it's difficult with him being so slow. You know, Trick Room is a thing that he can do, but Trick Room does run out, and then as soon as Trick Room is up, he's basically useless. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but what can you do? What can you do? It's a big fish. He's decent. He's fun. Whatever. All right, so let's move on to what dropped, and this is where I find it a little bit more surprising. So next, let's look at our drops here. Our drops are a little more significant, I think, than our rises, to be honest. So we start out with the Goon himself, Obstagoon, going down to UUBL again. This thing has also been living in limbo for a while now, and BL is honestly probably about where it lives with Hawlucha. It's a very good mon, but it's just being held back that it doesn't have Sucker Punch. If it had Sucker Punch, it would stay OU, it would never leave, it would be great. But he doesn't have it, and that's really sucking for him because he doesn't have a way to outspeed a lot of things. But if he had Sucker Punch with the guts, he would be able to run through a lot of teams, and he just can't. So that's basically why he keeps going back and forth, because he's just right there. He's one move away from being really, really good, but he's just not quite there. Now, a very surprising drop here, Darmanitan. Why is Darmanitan in UU? I don't know. This thing is going UUBL very quickly. I'm just gonna say it right now. It's going there very fast. This thing hits like a truck. I don't think that it's nearly as strong as its Galarian counterpart. However, I think it is too strong for our current UU tier. I mean, yes, now we have Mantine in there, but like, we don't have a reliable rain setter. We don't have reliable, like, anything. This thing is going to run through the UU tier. I see this thing very quickly exiting from this tier, not by its own accord, but being escorted out very quickly by all of the powers that be. We also have Rotom Wash. Rotom Wash is a mon that is a staple of OU and has now dropped, leaving only the Rotom Heat in the OU tier, which is pretty insane. I don't know the last time that Rotom Wash was in UU, and even that, like, even farther, that Rotom Wash was in UU and Rotom Heat was in OU. It's crazy. These things are absolutely insane that it dropped that low. And Sylveon has been kind of going back and forth. It came up to OU a couple months ago, and then now it's dropping back down. You know, Sylveon is a great mon, but it is limited by its move pool as far as what you can do with it. You know, it's got Hyper Voice, which hits like a truck. It's got Mystical Fire, and after that, it's kind of limited on what it can do. It's a great Wish support mon, which is what I use it for most of the time. But besides that, it's kind of limited, so I can see why. Torkoal, we now have... This is ridiculous. We now have Torkoal with Darmanitan in UU. This is not going to work. I'll just tell you right now, having sun boosted Flare Blitzes from Choice Scarf or Banded Darmanitan is not going to work in UU. That is going to be an absolute madhouse where this thing just sweeps everybody's team and there's nothing anybody can do about it. And yeah, that's about it. So Torkoal being down there is insane. Torkoal is a very good mon this gen, just being as bulky as it is, having access to body press, being able to set the sun up. It's a great mon. It's a great boy. I'm glad to see that it's getting more usage than it normally would, but I think it may end up making its way back up to OU, although I don't know. With it now being in UU and down here being with Darmanitan, I feel like it's going to get a lot of usage in UU. But who knows? We'll see what happens. Alright, so going to RU, we lose Cinescorch. Cinescorch is a great coil user, but I think his typing does hold him back, being 4 times weak to rocks. He's forced to run the boots, so he can't run any kind of other item. So that's unfortunate for him, and it makes it hard. It limits his options. Just his typing limits a lot of what he can do. So it is what it is. We've got Claydol. Claydol is a really cool mon because it can do a lot of things. It can set Trick Room, it can set up rocks, it can do screens, it can do Rapid Spin. It has a lot of different things at its disposal, but ultimately its stats don't really help it out all that much. And its typing isn't the best either, being weak to knockoff, being weak to U-turn. It's rough. It's a rough mon to have as that bulky mon when it's weak to those things. Regular Corsola, that thing sucks. We're gonna move on. We've got Decidueye. Decidueye dropping down. Decidueye is just too slow. And yes, he hits decently hard with Spirit Shackle and Leaf Blade, but I don't think that those two typings together are necessarily fantastic. I mean, it's very situationally good just because obviously Ghost is one of the best offensive typings in the game right now, but I think that Decidueye just isn't all that great, unfortunately. As much as I like him, he does have Swords Dance, he does have priority, so I don't really think he's going to go much lower than that, but I do think that this is pretty much where he belongs. Alolan Dougie, we talked about him extensively very recently on the channel, and basically it all just comes down to he sucks. The steel typing gave him a weakness to ground. He's already not bulky. He has a worse move set. He's just bad. He's really bad. Regular Farfetch'd, unevolved boy, it's whatever. Frostmoth. Frostmoth just keeps dropping, and again, just like Cinescorch, that 4 times weakness to rocks really limits what it can run. You know, Frostlass really wants to run a Life Orb in order to be able to Quiver Dance up, but it can't because of all of the rocks that are everywhere. Anytime it takes rocks, it takes half damage, and it doesn't get access to Roost. That's a big problem. Without Roost, this thing is just basically a sitting duck for rocks, and there's nothing that it can do about it. So that's really where this thing is really weak. It's a very good offensive typing, but it's very bad for stealth rocks. Lanoon gets belly drum, but I mean that's about it. I mean it gets access to belly drum and then extreme speed, which is pretty cool. So situationally he can be strong, but ultimately he's just not that great of a boy. Meltan, no. I hate to see Morpeko dropping because I love Morpeko. The ability to boost its speed with a 110 base move based on whichever typing it decides to be. Really cool mechanic, and I'm really bummed to see it drop to RU, but maybe it'll start doing really well. I don't know. We'll see what happens down here. I think it's got a few things that are going to be in its way down in this tier, but who knows? Maybe it'll come through and shine and then come back up to UU. We'll just have to see. Alolan Persian. Alolan Persian, as we said in our competitive decks, looking at Alolan forms, this thing sucks. It's not good. Its stats are really bad. It does get Fur Coat, which is cool, but it's nowhere near enough to save it. It gets Parting Shot, again, not enough to save it though. Just when your stats are this bad, there's nothing you can do. It's just awful. We have Alolan Raichu. Alolan Raichu is another cool mon, but again, its stats are very, very lackluster. It does get Surge Surfer, but the only setter of terrain right now is Pincurchin, and who is using Pincurchin? No one. Pincurchin sucks. It can set hazards and set up the terrain, and that's it, but nobody's running terrain teams really. Everybody runs weather because weather is just better. You get a lot more benefits from it than you do with the terrain, so it's unfortunate. But he does suck. Regular Rapidash. Regular Rapidash is a pretty cool mon that hits decently hard, is pretty fast, but ultimately just gets beaten out by a lot of things. It's fast, but it's not fast enough. It hits hard, but it just doesn't hit hard enough, and it's just not bulky enough. A lot of things. It's just one of those mons that I feel like is just so close to being where it needs to be. Maybe having access to Earthquake would be really good. That would help it out a lot, but unfortunately it's just real close and not quite there. Regular Stunfisk, he sucks. He's always sucked. It's whatever. He's not good in singles. Another mon that I hate to see down here is Virizion. It's just, I really want this mon to be good, but it's just not. You know, its stats are they're okay. It's in line with the rest of the Swords of Justice. He hits okay. He gets Calm Mind. He gets Swords Dance. Okay move pool, not really. I mean, we've talked about him in competitive decks before, but it's just tough. It's really tough for this thing to shine. Yes, it does well against things like Seismitoad, Gastrodon, all that stuff, but besides that, there's really not a lot of your like big bulky waters running around that to where you really need a Virizion on your team, or there isn't something on your team already that can deal with it better. So it's usually just something that you're not really going to choose over something else, unfortunately. And regular Weezing is kind of surprising to see drop just because Weezing is very good. Weezing is very bulky. It gets access to Will-O-Wisp. It is a fantastic physical wall. It's not a great special wall, so you definitely need something helping it out, but on the physical side, this thing is a monster, and I absolutely love using it. I think it's a great mon, so it's unfortunate to see it dropping down, but, you know, what are you gonna do? Alright, Are you to NU? We get Alchemy. Alchemy is a great special wall. It gets Draining Kiss. It gets all kinds of support moves, which is fantastic. It's a great mon. I think it's really cool, but unfortunately, people aren't using it. So, you know, it is what it is. It's just not bulky enough on the physical side. And again, there's just not enough to keep it up in that tier. I definitely agree with the change. I'm just not a fan of it. You know, it is what it is. Drift Blim. Offensive Drift Blim is a thing. Defensive Drift Blim is also a thing, but it just kind of sucks at both a little bit. It has a really high HP stat, but its defenses are pretty low and its offenses are also pretty low. There's just not much that you can really do about that. It's just lackluster. We've got Indeedee Female. Indeedee Female is a good Trick Room setter, but that's about it. It sets Psychic Terrain, so it is unique in that aspect. But that's, again, that's about it. You know, I've seen some specs variants, and that's about as far as it goes, honestly. It's just not that great, unfortunately. And that normal Psychic typing is very odd as well. Adding normal to any typing makes it kind of weird. It does make you immune to Ghost, which is good, but then what do you fire back with? There's not really much for it to do. Mr. Rhyme, I'm so sad about Mr. Rhyme dropping. I really was hoping that Mr. Rhyme would be better, but he's just not. You know, being the ice typing, he's taking all that damage from rocks, but then you can run boots. He does get rapid spin, which is pretty cool. He gets freeze dry. He gets a lot of really cool tech, but again, his stats are just a little lackluster. He's too slow. I wish they had kept his speed the same as Galarian Mr. Mime, rather than dropping his speed so low when he evolves. I think that is where the biggest problem lies, is just him being just a little too slow, but it is what it is. Quagsire. Quagsire is a very good bulky mon, but again, it is weak to that freeze dry, and it's weak to those grass types. So I can see this thing dropping. It usually sticks around this area right here, but if you get one set up with Stockpile, even in OU, there are some things that can't kill it. It's pretty insane. And then Galarian Slowpoke, don't care. And Arctozolt being our last one, moving down to PU, it's just too slow. It does get access to the Bolt Beak, which is nice. It is decently bulky, but just being so slow, it's just not a great mon. It's unfortunate. So before we head out, let's look very quickly at the OU usage statistics. Look at that #1 spot and tell me that's not a Dragapult. Suck it, Dragapult. You are no longer #1. I love it. I think it's great. But now we have a problem. Clefable is now at 41% usage. That's insane. That is so much. And I think a lot of that is attributed to Soft Boiled. This thing being able to heal itself without needing to waste 2 move slots on Wish and Protect now makes this thing even more of a monster. You can run Life Orb 3 attacks with the Magic Guard, and now you have healing. This thing is naturally bulky. It hits pretty hard. It's a very good mon. It definitely deserves being there. Corviknight #2 makes a lot of sense. Dragapult #3, still a very strong mon, but it is now at #3. Yeah, gosh, I wish this thing wasn't as good as it is, but it is. Zeraora going all the way up to #4. Yeah, this thing's so good though. It's there though because of Dragapult, and that's why Dragapult is losing usage. This thing is faster than Dragapult, so if you want to outspeed a Zeraora, you have to run Scarf, or else you just don't outspeed it. And then you get knocked out with a Play Rough or a knockoff, and you just don't have any other option. You have to run faster, or else you get knocked out by Zeraora, and that is really cool to see that Dragapult is starting to finally drop. Aegislash, always been strong. We've talked about him several times. Excadrill, same thing. Bisharp, Kommo-o, Hydreigon, Toxapex. We've talked about all these on the channel before. Seismitoad dropping down all the way to #11. He was up to #4 very recently, and now he's all the way down to 11. Ferrothorn, always very strong. Dracovish at 13, still very strong. Kyurem at 14. Kyurem is way higher than I expected. I expected Kyurem like mid-20s, but he's up to 14, which is very cool to see. Just one move, man. One move took Kyurem from pretty like RU UU borderline to OU like staple at number 14. All he needed was freeze dry, and they gave it to him, and now he's just running through teams. It's pretty awesome. We've got Rotom Heat. Again, we talked about that with the Rotom Wash. This thing is very good in this generation. It's just fantastic. The Volt Switch is always great. You've got the Overheat for several things in this tier. Just having a strong special attacker and something that can pivot like this is very nice, because there's not a lot that can do that right now. And his speed tier is okay, but running a Scarf on it, it does really well. It's a good mon. Hippowdon is going to be your typical sand setter right now, beating out Tyranitar, which is really awesome. He's just bulkier, and he's a better rock setter, I think. Just having that straight ground typing rather than having the dual typing of rock and dark is just better. You're not weak to fighting that way. So anyway, speaking of fighting, we've got Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr is a great boy. We've used him on the channel before. He can run AV, he can run Guts, he can run a lot of different things. He gets Defog now. Very good mon, a lot of versatility. Cinderace hits hard. Court Change, Powerball, crazy. Cloyster, we've talked about him several times. Mandibuzz, very bulky defogger. Another defogger. Togekiss, very, very strong. Nice to see at 21. And let's see, Jirachi, very cool to see. I'm really glad that this thing is sticking around. I'm kind of expecting Mew to drop sometime soon, as well as Ditto. I definitely thought Ditto would drop down a little bit lower, but it being the anti-sweeper that it is, it's been doing really well this generation. Terrakion sticking around, no surprise there. Terrakion's very strong. And then, of course, you've got Titar and Pelipper rounding out this OU tier. It's a cool tier. It's a cool OU tier right now. I think it's really nice seeing some mons that usually would not be in the spotlight be there, and seeing some mons that were in the spotlight start to drop down, and some start to rise back up. So yeah, let me know what you think of the current tier list right now, and if you think that all these changes are right. Let me know what you agree with, let me know what you disagree with, let me know what you think is just flat out right, flat out wrong. Let me know down in the comments below. Let me know what your favorite Pokemon is to use right now in competitive singles. That'd be a cool one. Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to read it. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.